Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is the world premiere.
Great morning, precious people. You know what time it is. That's right. It's time for your favorite talk show, The Culture Call, with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on 93.3 Praise. That's right. 790 WTSK. This is the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world. And as we say, for the next 2 hours, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to be talking a little bit about everything. That's right. From society to sports, education to economics, from religion to relationships. We are here to create a safe space. That's right, y'all. A safe space to have empowering, provocative, and yes, maybe even today, some controversial conversations. And guess what? You can call in and chat it up with me as we learn together right here on The Culture Call. Hey, shout out number one to all of our first-time listeners. Welcome to the CC family. That's right. I think I'm going to get some T-shirts so I can give out some T-shirts for the Culture Call. Welcome to the CC family. And I don't know how you heard about it, but I'm so glad that you did, whether you're at your job or whether you're home today, relaxing. You could be chilling by the pool. Doesn't matter. Eating your breakfast, drinking your coffee, whatever that might be. I am just glad that you're tuned in on this morning because we're going to have a powerful conversation on this morning. Shout out number two to all of my faithful, committed listeners. You just hang in here with me daily and all of that. I am grateful for your presence. Grateful for you being able to push us and make us do what we do every day, to perform how we perform so that we might stay on the top and be number one. That's right. Number one. And I am so glad and grateful. We could not definitely have done it without you. And of course, shout out number three, last but not least, the inimitable, the amazing, the anointed Brother Jay, who leads us from 5 a.m. all the way up to the 10 a.m. hour. That's right. Passes me this revival hot baton and says, son, run on to see what the end is going to be. And I am grateful and glad to be a part of the team that he's a part of, following right after him. I'm telling you, I'm grateful for his wisdom and his insight. That's right. And his love for gospel music. Sometimes I just sit and listen to his history and his life. I am privileged. Most people don't even understand the journey, but if you really understood his journey, you would appreciate even the more what he brings to Praise 93.3 and WTSK 790. We are grateful for him. Listen, I want you to do me a favor. Encourage all of you who have not done so already. Go to your app store on your smart device, and I need you to download Praise 93.3 FM. Go ahead and download that app. That's right. You can do that. And if you do that, you can hear us from wherever you are. That's right. And be a part of all the amazing programming that I'm telling you, the numbers are in, and we're at the top once again. That's right. Yeah. And we could not have done that without making sure that you can hear us and have availability or accessibility rather to our wonderful programming. So go ahead and download that on your Apple or your Android device and listen to us, whether you're in Topeka, Kansas, Phoenix, Arizona, Dallas, Texas, or right here in the beautiful city of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Birmingham, Mobile, Montgomery, Huntsville. You could be in Gordo, Reform, Utah. Yeah, Bola G, Epps. Doesn't matter where you are. Chilton County, Marengo. Yeah, all over the state and all over the country and all over the world. Tune in to Praise. Absolutely. Listen, also, you can email me your public service announcements and events at culturecall.praise@gmail.com. That's culturecall.praise@gmail.com, and give me an opportunity to let Lottie Dottie and everybody know what's going on in your organization, in your neck of the woods. That's right, whether it's your church, your sorority, your fraternity, whether you're an artist getting ready to do a concert or have a recording, or whether you're a pastor or a preacher getting ready to run a revival. I hope this is revival season. Run a revival or start a church. Does not matter. We want to let everybody know what you're doing to bless our community. And we want to put some faces into place. Why? Because we do it better when we do it together. And as always, you can listen to me on the golden number, or call in actually on the golden number 205-752-4800. That's 205-752-4800, and call into the show and be a part of the conversation. Bell Bishop, I missed the last show. Have no worries. Go to Apple Podcasts and you can find us there. Culture Call. Leave out the article Culture Call, and there you're going to find my face, and you can listen to all of our past shows and conversations. I'm sure it will definitely be a blessing to you. And last, before we get into this conversation today, because we've got a lot to talk about, listen, follow me on social media. Go ahead to Facebook. That's right, Facebook, and follow The Culture Call. Go ahead and press that like button. Doesn't matter. Press it there. Like. That's all it takes. You don't have to fill out no forms or sign sign your child over or anything, or child or check over. All you got to do is press that like button, and now you are a follower of The Culture Call, and you can stay up on exactly what we're going to be talking about this week. All right? Good deal. Listen, sit back and relax. Grab you some coffee. You know how we do it. Maxwell House or Starbucks. Maybe coffee is not your thing. You know I'm always a proponent of herbal tea. Listen, y'all, I had some good herbal tea this morning. Some hibiscus tea. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. A friend of mine recommended that for me for blood pressure. Yeah. And so hibiscus tea, but of course you can get some chamomile if you're trying to calm down, and you can get some green tea if you're trying to spruce up. That's right. Absolutely. Or maybe you're not a coffee or a tea drinker. Go ahead and get you some alkaline or some spring water. Essentia is my favorite. Go ahead and detox that body. Yeah, wake those cells up, get hydrated, and let's get into the culture. Culture Call. There has been so much going on in our country. I mean, this past week, number one, I was supposed to be out of town on Sunday preaching in Orlando, Florida for a great friend of mine. He turned 50, and I was going to preach his birthday service. And my wife and I, we got stuck at the airport because of the glitch that happened in the IT systems. And that affected the entire country. I'm telling you, we stayed there all day only for them to cancel our flight, and they kept delaying out of Birmingham. And, I went to the counter, I think it was around 4 o'clock. I think it was about 4 o'clock. We had been there since about 12. Our original flight was at 1, and they kept delaying. So I went to the counter, and I said, y'all, hey, tell me the 1,000% truth. I said 1,000%. And the guy said, okay. Hey, I said, listen, I need to know, is there a flight that's going to go out to Atlanta and from Atlanta to Orlando and get me there on time? And he started typing. And I knew he was, trying to, he was like, I was looking at his eyes. He was giving me the eyes like, no, bro, that's not going to happen. He's a black guy. He's like, no, bro, no. He said, because your flight from Atlanta to Orlando has just been canceled. So even if you fly out from here, you're not going to get to Orlando in time for the engagement. So, yeah, there's been a whole lot going on. There are friends that I know who are stuck in Nevada. That's Las Vegas. That's where they had the Stellars this past weekend. And I didn't go because, I'd already accepted the engagement to go preach for my friend. And so I didn't go to the Stellars, and I didn't go to Orlando. So my wife and I, we just hung out in Beham, just took some sites, spent some quality time, laughed, played around, visited some sites that we hadn't gone to. I had never been in the 16th Street Baptist Church, 16th, and that was a great thing because they were having a youth concert there. We just walked around and just enjoyed the sights, and and just kind of decided that, hey, we need to do more of that. But nonetheless, the outage is still affecting a whole lot of flights today, yesterday, that the Delta, who I normally fly with, Delta just canceled 600 flights. Y'all, 600. Right? So I said all that to say that if you got to travel any this week via plane, you might want to check in on that. You might want to check in on that, right? And that's just, because you're probably either going to not get there, or, you're going to get stuck, right? Wherever you are, you're either not going to be able to get there, or you're not going to be able to get back here. And so you got to make a decision. A friend of mine hit me up yesterday and said, hey, I was supposed to go to Texas, but I didn't go, but my coworkers went. They got stuck. And so the company was making them drive from Texas all the way back to Alabama so they wouldn't miss work. I said, the devil is a liar, but I guess he wasn't, because they had to get in that car because no flights were going out, right? And, of Delta, right? So that's the airline that is prominently struck. So I'm just saying that pay attention this week if you got to do traveling, on airlines, and it's Delta most specifically rather. Make sure you're paying attention to that. Get the Delta app, download it, all of that, because they're going to send you. I mean, the flight to Orlando, the flight that was Saturday, I was supposed to make it there Saturday, did not even leave Birmingham until Sunday. What? Can you believe it? Right? And so, I just want you to pay attention. Okay. That was the number one thing. That's number one. Number two, y'all ready to talk about this? Y'all ready to talk about Joe Biden and the president and the whole transition this weekend that happened? First of all, I know how we felt in terms of Joe Biden stepping down after all of his years of service. Let me just say this and be very clear, because I don't think that we're very clear on how our stances and things. That as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as one who lived through the pandemic and saw us go through and just so much economically, physically, Joe Biden probably was the tremendous godsend that lifted this country up out of that despairing time, right? And when the former administration was like, inject yourself with bleach, nonetheless, or eat horse medication, right? I mean, it is what it is. I'm not talking about anybody. I'm not casting aspersions upon the last administration, but it's exactly what they did. And, you got all of this going on, and, and then, so you got to understand that, President Biden is a career politician. And so it had to take a lot of confidence and a lot of self-awareness to be able to say, you know what, I might need to step down. Now, whether we think that he was forced politically or not, that's not what we're going to talk about today, because that will send us down a rabbit hole, in terms of what needed to happen. But one of the significant things that I think is important that happened, and we're going to be talking about this all week long. One of the things that I think that has happened important significantly was that he endorsed his VP, which was the first black woman vice president, which is Kamala Harris, right? And how capable she was and is, and whether that was a part of the game plan. I think his thing was, okay, whoever the powers that be were, and let me tell you how things work. Here was his negotiation. Okay, I'll step down, but she has to be the person that you choose. What you will not do is have me step down and ignore her. First of all, the level of turmoil that the country and the Democratic Party would have been in would have been ridiculous. Because first of all, you was not going to overlook a system. Not number one, right? Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that, because there are certain people, those who are ADOS. If you don't know anything about ADOS, it's African descendants of slavery, ADOS. Those who only think that, black people who were in America should receive reparations, and they define blackness. Of course, that they need to do some history I get the understanding of what they're saying in terms of if, slavery in this country as it relates to the reparations question, that if you black in England, you should get reparations because you really didn't, your ancestors didn't really work in this country. So I get that. But the whole issue of ethnicity and the social construct of race, to call her not black is ridiculous. Or however she identifies as black, right? Because you got some biracial people who have black genes in them that do not consider themselves to be black. It is what it is, right? And so, yeah. And so they were like, well, her father was born Jamaican. Her mother is South Asian Indian. And so they were like, well, she's not really black. Come closer. Hey, the whole idea is if the father is whatever that father is, or whatever that is on the birth certificate is exactly what she is. I mean, her construct of life was around black and brown people. And I had to tell them that folks from Jamaica and all of the Caribbean islands from Africa, that was a passageway so they came from the Caribbean up to the Gulf on the Atlantic coast to Virginia to South Carolina to Georgia, right? And then some of them went to Louisiana and Mississippi, but all of us come from Africa, right? So yeah, this is going to be a very interesting season. And I believe yesterday she secured all of the delegates to be the presumptive nominee. We know that the Democratic National Convention is going to come up next month, and next month is right around the corner, and it's going to ratify that decision. And so, yeah, that part. And she has no contenders. She had no contenders. She has, as a presidential candidate, and I need y'all to lean into this, as a president, raised the most money in a 36 hour than any other candidate has ever done, even Barack Obama, right? And that is significant when you're talking about leadership, when you're talking about the ability to galvanize people around a political discourse and a direction, right? And so, the one party, the Democratic Party, was feeling a little disabled and disconnected and disunified prior to the announcement of President Biden, who is yet still the president, recovering from COVID, and this announcement and this endorsement. Last night, I had the very fine privilege of being on a call with about 40,000, I think it was, I believe, 30,000 black men. We win with black men on that call, sponsored by Roland Martin. And we had, and I think we raised last night about $1 million, $1 million+. The night before, my wife was on Win with Black Women, and they raised about $1.4 million. So the grassroots donorship has been staggering, right? Has been ridiculous. And I think this is very important, the energy that's been created. And we have to, especially those of us who are religious, because this is what I'm going to be talking about this week, this whole issue of learning how to navigate the nuance between public policy and personal theology. That's what we're going to be talking about, right? Because one of the things that I have seen so far, Culture Call, in every political process has been the attack on the most stable and consistent demographic of the Democratic Party, which is black people, black women first, and then black men, right? And don't get it twisted. It wasn't anybody black that elected the former administration. It was truth be told, it was white women. There's no sign of castigation there. That's just the reality of the facts of the numbers. Figures don't lie. Numbers don't lie. People do, but numbers don't lie. And overwhelmingly, white women voted for the last administration. And then, disingenuously came out for women's movement. And so now they've had an experience and seen the kind of context of what this administration is going to come trying to do. And especially with this Project 2025, we're going to be talking about a whole lot about that on the Culture Call, because I think you need to know what it really is. And we talked about it a little bit on last week, but I want to delve into it because I think it is important for us as black people not to be late, last, and lost. Now, we understand a few things as black people, especially living in southern states, right, which normally go Republican. I think Georgia kind of changed that, in the last election, where we were able to turn a red state purple at least, and really push President Biden over the top at the time, and VP Harris over the top. And so, we understand that when we vote as black people in the southern states, however, right, that it has always been primarily symbolic, because we know that we are outnumbered. I feel the wind of change now. I feel something happening in southern states. I feel that once we galvanize, we understand the importance and the criticality of the moment, that we can come together and galvanize and at least put pressure on Alabama. I think that is very, very important, that we can put pressure on Georgia again, pressure on Louisiana, right? That, Louisiana got the governor they got because the black vote decreased incredibly. They didn't even vote. And so now they got a highly, highly ultra far right, ultra conservative governor there that's trying to already implement some of the things of Project 2025. And you got my black brothers and sisters like, well, how does it happen? How did it happen? I'll tell you how it happened. You didn't go vote. You didn't. You did not do your civic responsibility, because you believe the trope of these bloggers and these people on social media who don't have the intelligence of a gnat, do not know how to research, do not know how to verify before they vocalize, right? They just say stuff to create panic and angst and things of that nature, right? So you let that governorship, which was a Democratic governor in Louisiana, they let it slip and go back to an ultra conservative. And so that thing is very, very important. Very important that as we have 100 days away from the next general election, not only that, let's think about the down ballots. Let's make sure that in our own state that we send the right people to Washington, that we have the right people in our state going to Montgomery. It's November in our cities, right? We have to do the work, right? One of the things that I've been talking about with my classmates, in my cohort, and even in my intercessor team at church, is that we've got to do more than pray. Prayer is essential. Prayer is essential. But faith without action is dead, James says, being alone, right? You just can't have pray. At somebody's got to be Rhoda and go to the door and open up and check to see the answer of that which we prayed for. We're going to have to do some mobilization in our communities like never before, from young to old, right? We got to do all that we can do, and not simply because the one of the candidates is a black individual, right? Because again, all my skin folk ain't my kinfolk. Zora Neale Hurston said that, right? That just because they have your color does not mean that they have your interest, right? And so that's very important as we talk about this week, right? And, get an understanding. And I want to stir up your righteous mind, right? Not your right mind, but your righteous mind. Because sometimes what we think is right trumps what is righteous. And that is important as we talk about the convergence between public policy and personal theology. We'll get to that in just a moment. But then the reality is the main target has been black men. We need to talk about why that is, right? Why are there people in our community that think, entering into another degree of subjugation, rejection of freedoms and liberty is worth a $1,200 check that they believe that the last administration's president gave them, which is not the truth. It's not, right? And even if he did, this administration, the Biden administration, gave more, right? And did not have to have Biden's signature on it, because for him, it's not a propaganda, it's not a marketing situation, right? But so that says something about us, Culture Call. Please don't get mad at me today. You probably will, but I'll be all right. And you will be too. But we are not so impoverished of not just money, but of conscience and consciousness. that we are willing, as Jesus said, what would it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? But it's that second clause. What would a man give in exchange for his soul? Right? So you're giving away your freedoms, your liberty. You're giving away the ability to have autonomy and control over your own actions as an individual. You're giving away all of that simply because you think that another individual is going to give you a stimulus check, and they already told you in their plan, they're not. They've rejected the notion of the pandemic. So where does check coming from? What is it going to be done for? Right? It will only be done to obfuscate and to confuse you to thinking that somebody's giving you a handout. Listen, black and brown people, we've got to move away from the notion that, Jesus said the poor you will be always, and we've got to stop identifying as the poor. We've got to stop identifying as, well, we're waiting on somebody to do something for us and we need to put something. No, absolutely not. That is not how we made it thus far. That is not how we survive slavery. That is not how we survive Jim Crow and segregation. That is not how we have moved forward even into this present generation. No, we have found the wherewithal via community, via collaboration, collective work. We have found it through our churches, our spiritual base and sense and foundation to come together and see a goal and make it happen. Right? That I absolutely reject the notion that we are the poor, that will be with this government always. When you understand that oligarchs, people at the top of the financial chain, are trying to control, they know that the former administration has no policy. No, they are inept. And that was the issue. This is why Project 2025 came out, because they recognized that the last time that they were in office, they actually passed no policy. And so Project 25 is a list of policy orientations that they're going to try to do. See, now this time they have policy. And we said previously, I think it was last year, when it comes back, they're going to come back with policy. They're going to come back with a little bit more strategy this time, right? January 6th did not work, barely. And how you feel about Mike Pence, all you want to, but he was central and significant in doing his job and not being crooked, which is why, guess what? He is not the vice presidential candidate on that side again. You see? And so there's so much we got to talk about. Oh, my goodness. Listen, that's why I'm going to spread it out all week. We're going to be talking about public policy and personal theology as the world turns. Y'all remember that soap opera? But yes, we've got a lot of talk about Culture Call, but I need you to keep it right here. Yes, we're going to talk about the significance of your vote, the value of what you think as a believer, as a person of faith, and how do you add that and apply that to the marketplace. You need to stay right there. There's so much more we got to talk about right here on the Culture Call. Praise 93.3. Yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Don't you dare turn that down. Get you some coffee and keep it right here.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK. And we are so glad that you have tuned in today to have a conversation, about our personal theology and public policy. We're going to get there because this is it's a long conversation. It's an in-depth conversation, but I know you're tuned in. Here's the deal. One of the things that's very important that in this country, that has always been important in this country, is the fact that it has been said historically that black and brown people are the conscience of the country. That there is something that is within us that keeps a moral value in this country. And I am one, after I've done my studies, believe it, right? And one of the things that it's a different way that we were raised. It's a different way that we see life. It's a different way that, our community is shaped up. It's a whole lot of things that make our intricate system of who we are as black and brown people in this country, in our city, in our communities. We just move differently, And so I think that is every election season, that is what comes to bear. Now, why do you say that? Because one of the things that's been going on for quite some time now is this whole obsession with pulling black men away from the cultural and societal aspects of who they are in America and pulling them over to get them to vote or get them to respond or to decide according to their economic interest, right? That if we give them proximity or closeness to what they deem to be as power, right? Because it's the whole miseducation of the Negro. You know, Carter G. Woodson, the founder of Black History Week, then month, he wrote a book, and it's just the way that America educates black people, black men in particular, is to make them desire and crave to be adjacent or to have some level of closeness to whiteness, right? I don't know how many of you, because y'all saved, sanctified. I am too, but I look at the movies. I don't know if you all ever seen Django Unchained. It has Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio, all of those things. And what's my girl? My goodness, Kelly. I can't even remember her name. Nonetheless, they are the prime subjects in the movie, and there is a character that Samuel Jackson plays, Stephen. And Stephen, over the years, has been given proximity to the white slave master on Candyland. That's the name of the plantation. And so Stephen has been given this level of proximity, and this level of proximity has also given Stephen vocality and somewhat power to treat other slaves badly, like he is the master of the slave, even though he's a black man, right? Right. And what the whole notion is there is a desire for that has been taught that you can't be this unless you're that. No, I am a child of the 70s. I grew up in the 80s at the beginning of the hip hop movement of that culture. Stay with me. At the beginning of the hip hop movement culture, even in gospel, in terms of music and just life, that's just kind of, I'm a church baby. But one of the things that I reflectively look back and I noticed at the time, but I didn't really pay attention to it, is that there was an affinity. There was a certain level of adjustment, adjacency, desire to be close to whiteness, right? And when I say whiteness, I'm not talking about white people. I'm talking about the social construct of whiteness, right? Because we know white people ain't white, just like black people ain't black, right? In terms of color, right? So if we're going to tell the truth, right, that my dad used to tell me that the people that are colored are the ones that can be pink, they can be blue, they can be all different kinds. They turn red. That's not what we do. Nonetheless, right? But from that time, and even in the hip hop, when the hip hop came up, we used to go to New York every year. That those guys used to, have an affinity, have a desire to be like Donald Trump. It was in their rap music. It was in the music. It was in there. There was an affinity because at that time, even though, there was a whole racial system, a racist system going on in that company, they saw him as the epitome of what they wanted to be, right? And so, but that they could never be, or that they were willing to do anything to have that kind or that level of economic status. And that has been a part, that whole Stephen mentality that, yes, I'm a black man, but I've garnered so much favor with the master, with whiteness, with Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I've gained so much favor that now he has placed me. I'm a faithful, slave, right? And so now he can trust me to adjudicate and to speak to talk to control every other slave. You have house slaves and you had field slaves. Now, Stephen is in this position because of his closeness to whiteness. And so, why do you bring this up? There has been an education that a lot of, not the majority, but a lot of black men have had, that if I can be close to this, it will put me in this position not to be X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Okay, yeah, but that's not true. That's not true, because at the end and the beginning of the day, when you look at the system does not regard your financial ethics, your financial accoutrements. It does not care about how much money you have in your pocket, right? This system is built around average whiteness being superior to exceptional everybody else. Let me say this again, that the system is garnered to honor average whiteness and put them in a place of exceptionality and a supremacy and superiority to everybody else, right? That's how you can look at some of the photos of people who are walking around now and talk about Hitler and Trump and all these different kinds of things. You can look at them and you're like, wait a minute, you ain't got no teeth. You look like you just crawled out the bed. You don't have you look weird, but you can get, to your doctorate degree. I'm not talking about these honorary ones. I'm talking about the ones that academically earned, right? Casting no aspersions, but it is what it is. You can get all of that, and they will feel like they're coming out of the backwoods and that they are yet superior to you. Because again, the construct of the country, y'all not hearing me. See, I'm not saying white people. I got to make sure you underline that, because I have good white friends. You got good white friends. Hey, we are the world. We are the children. We are the ones that make a brighter day. So let's start living. Okay, whatever. But I'm not talking about an anthropological being. We're not talking about anybody's physiology. We're talking about a system, a social construct, right? So when I say whiteness, I don't want you to think white people. I'm talking about whiteness because there are some white people that do not agree with whiteness, right? That they have recognized that whiteness has given them privilege as a white person, and they are against the institutional social construct of whiteness. What I am saying, that the system of whiteness causes average people, average white men, average white women, average white children to think that they are superior, right, to everybody else, and have attempted to way back that if we get the black men, because you don't find this phenomenon a lot of times in black women, if we can get black men to sit at our tables, right? Even if they not have the good piece of chicken, they're at the table, right? And they can start looking down on and rejecting their right or their fight for true personal autonomy and liberty, and they will side with us. And we can turn them against their own people. Yeah, that's what we can do. That's what whiteness does. Right, we can make it feel like, oh, I don't do that. I don't eat watermelon. I don't eat fried chicken. As if there is something wrong with that. There's not, right? But notice what you're going to start finding out even now is that they're going to start putting up black men who are adjacent to whiteness to fight and to come against Kamala Harris. You're going to see it. It's already happening now. It is already happening now. Right? Because the objective is to what? Divide and conquer. To divide and conquer, right? It's the whole idea. Again, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about institutions. Like Paul says in Ephesians chapter 6, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Come on, but against powers and principalities. Spiritual wickedness in high places, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. Right. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about principalities and systems. Right. And this is what the miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson is talking about, that there is an onslaught of education that has been given and has made them made black men like me feel like the closer you are in proximity to the institution of whiteness, right, that you're better than. right? And then you'll start saying, oh, you're just a part of what is it? You're just a part of what is that? The plantation, the Democratic plantation. Okay, really? We're not going to, my goodness, we're not going to even go there. We're not going to have enough time today to even deal with that, right? That was a trope, and that was a scheme that was even part of the Southern strategy from Nixon and Lee Atwater and all of that, right? So, right. And so you get all of that. You get all that. So, because back in the day, black people were Republicans, but that's when Republicans had the platform of Democrats, right? Social construct, liberalism, all of those different kinds of things, freedom. And then when President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act from Dallas, Texas, then it switched. The Dixiecrats became Republicans, and that's when the southern states really became, because Republicans, when they used to be Democrats, Strom Thurmond, all of those, right? And so it's important for us to understand the history. But and so they're coming up, well, she put black men in jail, Kamala Harris. She didn't put black men in jail. As the district attorney, she made sure that that black men would not go to jail for petty offenses. See, when you do the research, when you do the study, you will find that they called her soft on crime because she went in and turned around the California as the district attorney. She turned all of that around. For black people, she did not. But stop. Let's just talk about this. Y'all ready for this? Why in the world do you feel that if somebody's black in leadership, that they owe you a favor? That when Pookie and your uncle and your brother and all those folks, they go out in the street, shooting up our neighborhoods, killing our cousins, making you afraid to be out there, that trafficking drugs in our neighborhood, why do you think that because somebody is black and they're in law enforcement that they ought not be held accountable to that? Why is that the mentality? Because that's what the mentality is, where she put so many brothers. No, number one, she didn't, right? And the percentage that were in there, they deserve to be in there. You do know, red, right, black, or brown, there are some people who are wicked and evil, and they do wrong things. They break the law, and they deserve. Romans 13, right? Romans 13 tells you that, hey, you got to obey the law, because the officer does not carry the authority for naught. No, you know how this American system is, unfair and unjust as it may be. Then if that's the case, if you believe that they are not afraid to put an innocent man in jail, then what makes you think that they won't put a person that breaks the law in jail? So we got to change our whole mentality in our community, that people who do that. But she, instead of giving those people harsh prison sentences as it had been, she started turning it over and started doing rehabilitation programs. And she would put pedophiles and predators, sexual predators and traffickers in prison. Now that she did, and that she needed to do, right? And so my thing is, if we're going to talk, let's talk about the truth. If we're going to tell it, let's tell it like it is. Let's call a thing a thing. Let's call a thing, right? The whole issue. If she identifies, we've embraced her as a sister, and I get it, the folks out there, well, no, she knows. Who has the litmus test? I want to know who has the litmus test, or who is the one that's adjudicating what is authentically black? Who's doing that? See, because that's very difficult, because our history in this country, because of how the slave master would go into the slave quarters and pick out the women and have sex with them and rape them and produce these light-skinned babies. Where do you think they came from? So we're going to say that person is not this and that. Where does this come from? See, a lot of being effective in this season is going to have to be proper education. It's got to be. We got to stop talking about what we see in these memes that are with the bots, with fake profiles, putting black pictures up. I mean, you thinking that's a black person talking when it's really not somebody over in, in Afghanistan, is somebody over in Russia or China. You think that person is really black right here around the corner. No, that's not even a real individual. But we want research. And they know that. And there is a target on black men. And so I am duty bound as a black man, as a leader in the community, as an activist, as a pastor, to make sure that we don't fall to deception, that we don't fall to the whole idea of, some of these things that are going on. You see, because there is great angst and fear in this country, and there is no reason to fear. The choice is clear as day. I mean, and there is no shade. There is no blindness. If you open your eyes, the way that they want to control, and they're using religion, and we're going to talk about that in the next half. They're using religion to control, to cloudy and muddy up the waters. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I think that is a conversation worth having right here on the Culture Call with your boy, L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK. Go ahead and get you some coffee or some soda. Scratch that. No soda. Get you some water. Yeah. And keep it right here. Get your little snack. We got much more to come. Don't you dare miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. That's right. It's the top of the hour, 11 a.m. and some change, right here on the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3 and 790 WTSK. And we are having a marvelous day, a wonderful day. Yeah, absolutely. A great conversation. I want to remind you now, you can go ahead and definitely hit culturecall.praise@gmail.com and send me your public service announcements so that I can let everybody know, lottie-dottie, and everybody know what you're doing in your neck of the woods. I think it is very important. Thank you all for hitting me up on this app. Thank you. Telling me this is the conversation that our community really needs, because people don't talk about this. I'm like, whoa, well, I guess I'm the guy that does it. That's because that is my assignment on this station, to make sure that my community is not late, last, or lost, especially my good church folks, because that's who I am. That's who I am, right? I am the bishop. That's what they call me. And so it is my privilege and my pleasure to always do the research for you, to make it easy, at least give you some cliff notes so that you can research yourself. That's what I do when I'm preaching or when I'm teaching, is that I try to make sure that I amalgamate a level of information so that you can pique your interest and you can begin to look for things yourself, so that, again, that you won't be walking in the dark when everybody is standing in the light, right? And so, but that's what this is about. I want to tackle this whole idea of public policy versus personal theology. I think it is important as we see the convergence of religion and politics. Now, the reason why I want to start here is, I want to vector here, not start, but I want to vector here and how we have to confront some things as people of faith. So I want you to understand that as we approach this conversation and we delve into it, especially as we unpack it later on this week, I want you to understand that each and every one of us have been created by God, according to the text in Genesis, in his likeness, in his image. And part of that likeness in his image, that we have been given the attributes of God, right? That means that we, each of us, have a particular level of sovereignty over our own lives, that he made us in his likeness and his image, right? And has given us the power of choice and free will, right? So then God does not, I want you to understand, Creator Yahweh, Elohim, does not enforce himself upon us to choose his path of life. And I think that is very important, that he creates all humans, but then he puts an element in all humans' spirit, soul, to know that he is real, that there is a consciousness of what people call a higher being, a higher power. We call him God. We call him Yahweh, Elohim, right? That's what we know him as. We believe the Bible. We believe the word of God, or the Bible is the word of God, right? And so it is important to us then to make certain those of us who have made that choice. Let me say it again, because I think sometimes we miss it. Those of us who have made that choice to worship Yahweh, to worship God, Jehovah, that it's important that is our choice. This thing does not work without choice. Our relationship with God is stronger than the religion of Christianity. Let me say this again, because some of y'all are going to get mad at that. But you've got to have a relationship with God that is stronger than the religion of Christianity that was promulgated and really assigned in the the early books of Acts, right? That it was at Antioch that they were called Christian, right? This whole thing. Jesus did not come to start a religion, right? Can we all agree there, Culture Call? He did not come to start a religion, right? That developed after his death, burial, resurrection, and validation, affirmation, and ascension, right? Then the apostles in the early church, in the first century church, take over in the book of Acts, right? And then we see how this demonstration, they were known as the people of the way. That's how they were coined. They were not Christians from the beginning, right? They were called the people of the way. The word Christian, which means Christ likeness, was assigned at Antioch. That's important to note. These people had chosen to follow Christ. These people were living in a different way, right? And had not known or had not heard, had not seen, and had an encounter and an experience with the Messiah, right? And it was that encounter, whether it was him confronting them, their sin, their darkness of ignorance, their religion, as it was with Nicodemus, all of those, we've got various accounts in the Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We've got various encounters with people. And even John says there was so much going on that he did that if we wrote it down in the book, there would be no book that would be big enough to contain it. Right. So then all that Jesus really did and was and was and acted in the earth was not even written. John the Gospel, John the Revelator, the beloved said that. Right. But this whole thing hinges upon choice. There was never, a force. It was never a force, that God, in the formulation of his people in the Old Testament, he would say, choose ye this day. Now, God has certain requirements and standards in the Old Testament, apart from what we understand as salvific grace. He has all of that. And when the people disobeyed, this would happen. They would become an onslaught, or an enemy would come in. The people obeyed. God would turn, especially you see that in the book of Judges, right? You see it with all of those different kinds of things. Moses, you see this whole outline in the Old Testament, right? The prophets, all of those, the book of wisdom, all of those things. We see God's eternal or God's creational grace there, right? That God has created everything. He desires to be worshiped, does not force anybody to worship him, because there were other gods going on. Ashtaroth, Dagon. There were many other gods that were going on at the same time of the formulation of the people of Israel, of the Hebrew people. Now, number one, let's start here. Everyone that God created, right, has that same level of choice. They could choose him or reject him. This is why he says, hey, today I set before you life and death. Choose life that you and your children, your family may live, right? This is the reason why Joshua stands up and says, hey, choose ye this day whom you will serve. Will it be God or Baal? Will it be Yahweh or Baal? So there was always a choice. There's always a choice. Always been wicked people. Second thing I want to tell you from a very biblical studies understanding, the Bible is not a history book of all of the world. It does not. It's not that. It does not chronicle every event that was happening all over the world. There were peoples all over the world, right? There had Philistines, you had Assyrians, you had those who were in Mesopotamia, you had Sumerians, you had Egyptians, you had all of these people, right? Canaanites, Amorites, Amalekites, Amorites, you had all of these ites, right? But what the Bible does is chronicle a particular people, and that is the Hebrew people or the Israelites at the time, right? So, but the whole idea is choose. He always sets a choice before you, right? And he does not use what he says to rob you of your ability to choose. Now, why did you take that long path, L, to get to this statement? Because I want to give you some history, and I wanted to give you some biblical history. Because nobody can disagree with anything I said. I mean, if you do, I'll bring you on a show and we can talk about that disagreement. You can come on and we can go back and forth about, I'm not going to debate, but I will discuss, right? Here's the deal. So choice is at the center. Choice says relationship. When you have no right to choose, y'all see where I'm going? When choice has been taken away from you, you then now produce a religion. And unless I live this religion, then my life is in danger, because the religion, by virtue of it being religion, has taken away my choice. And also since it's taken away my choice, it has also taken away my ability to have a relationship with God. Let me say it again. That religion born, extracted from relationship first as its foundation. See, I worship him because I get to show that via my relationship. My relationship gives me the opportunity to worship him. Religion says you better worship him or you're going to die. Right? Right. And that's not necessarily that's not what the text says. Right? It's this whole idea of choice. Now, when we talk about that from a foundational, both in the Old and the New Testament, talking about choice, right? We have to understand that as citizens of this country, there are going to be times when we are faced with how we navigate the issue of public theology, public policy versus personal theology. Personal theology, what I believe, what you believe versus what public policy should be. Come closer. Y'all ready? The whole world is not Christian. They don't believe like we believe. Right? And when you understand how the way in this issue of Christianity was politicized from Constantine, where you begin to really understand how it was damaged because the church was growing and it was becoming an influential power, right? The ecclesia was becoming an influential power in all of the land at that time. And so what Constantine decided to do, we've talked about this before, is decided to amalgamate or to come closer to marry the Christianity with the state, right? And so that's something that's something that you need to understand. That Christianity in its purest sense, we have never had in this country. Never. From Constantine, we've never had. It's even one of our songs reflect that. Y'all don't get mad. Have you got good religion? Because the whole idea, Jesus never came to, you can have a good religion, always in church on Sunday, always doing X, Y, Z, always that, right? Your morality, whether you're good or bad, evil or good, evil or righteous, wicked or righteous, that does not merit anything to God if you don't have a relationship, right? Simply because it's this whole idea that this young ruler, I'm gonna use the Bible since we're here. This young ruler says, hey, Jesus, I've kept all of the law. Now, Jesus knew when he had this discourse that this joker had an issue, right? I've kept all of the law. And from my childhood, I ain't done nothing wrong. He was moral. I ain't treated nobody wrong. Jesus said, I tell you what then, go sell all you have. Go ahead, barter that, give it to the poor, leave all of that and come follow me. And the scripture says, the text says, this young man, was defeated and depressed and discouraged in his spirit. Why? Because he had great riches. He had a lot of money. Right? And so Jesus was not telling him to take a vow of poverty as some has preached it. No, Jesus was identifying him. Sir, what you consider to be your morality is not what this is about. This is not hinged upon your goodness. I want to tell you, this is not hinged upon your goodness. This is about relationship with him. That even if I fall, I'm not utterly cast down. I'm thankful that he is able to keep me from falling. But even if I fall, I'm not utterly cast down because his hand upholds me. His right hand upholds me. What is the right hand? Blessing. The hand of blessing and favor and authority upholds me. Right? That's relationship. I'm his child. You can squander all of everything that he gives you as an inheritance. You can squander that. But there is still a place for you to come back home. And what does he do? Does not make a mention of what you did wrong. See, that's relationship. What we're having when you're dealing with public policy versus personal theology is sometimes, especially as black folks, we don't see, we buy into this whole thing. Everybody got to do this. Everybody got to do that. And we don't know how to see the humanity beyond the choice that they have made not to agree with how we live our faith, how we live our life via the faith of in relationship with God. We can't see that, which is why we preach a lot about sin. Is sin real? Yes. But what is sin? It's not the transgression. Ultimately, sin is living or falling against the mark, falling beneath the mark of God's intention, right? We all have sinned and done what? Fallen short of the glory of God, right? That glory there, the word doxa, D-O-X-A, is the word of intention, the essence, the idea, the reason why we were created. All of us have sinned because none of us have lived up to the apex or to the standard of what God put us in the world for, right? So, yes, there are always going to be sinners. There are sinners in church. There are sinners that Jesus has proved in the text that do good things, that we would consider moral. No, because this money is in the way of you. You can't sell out everything for God. Then, yeah, this is why you need him. Because he knows you can't live all the law. Now, before I sound preachery, I'm not, what I'm saying is you and I have to understand and begin to, if we're going to participate in public policy, in the shaping of public policy, everybody's not a Christian. There are some Hindus, there are some Buddhists, there are people that don't, there are some atheists that deserve to live. You know how they deserve to live? Because God put them there. Before Christianity, he tells Jeremiah, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. Right? So God is not intimidated by an atheist. God is not intimidated by somebody that does not believe in him. God says, the word says, a fool have said in their heart that there is no God. Right? And there are so many things that are yet to be explained. Every day we see the manifold wisdom of God. But here it is. If you're going to be a Christian participating in public policy, you got to do what Jesus did. That means love the whole world. Love the whole world. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man would give his life for a friend. For his friends, right? You got to see the whole world as potential to coming to him. And you cannot do that if you force them in your religion. And you cannot do that, You cannot do that making the caveat that you deserve to live free and live good if you are a Christian. If you're not a Christian, then you're going X, Y, Z, A, B, C. No, but remember, the conversation of Christianity was not even the issue when Christ was in the earth. David was not a Christian. Hello, was not, y'all. He was not. And if we're looking at this whole issue of sin, hamartia, falling against the glory of God, David was a philanderer. David was an adulterer. David was a murderer. All of these things. And yet the testimony was he's a man after God's own heart. Because men look at the outward appearance, and I think this is what we get in trouble with. Samuel says this. When the Holy Spirit says this to Samuel, right? Men look at the outward appearance, but what God looks at the heart. And so if you're going to engage in public policy, in voting, you got to understand that your brother or your sister may not believe like you believe. They have the power of their choice, but here's what I got to do. I have to and that is not a betrayal of your faith if I vote for them to live. It's not a betrayal of your personal theology. I don't believe in abortion. I don't believe in adultery. I don't believe in these things. I don't believe, you see, I don't believe them, but I cannot force my beliefs down somebody else's throat. That's what Project 2025 is doing. We over here don't believe in divorce, so we're going to end all divorce. But the Bible doesn't end it. What are you talking about? The Bible doesn't end divorce. The Bible said Moses wrote bills of divorcement because of the hardness of the hearts of men, right? Back in the Bible times, which we were not born in and not in that culture, women could not divorce their husbands. Could not. Women were viewed in that time as property. Yes. That when a husband died, she had to marry. It was the brother's responsibility to marry the wife. Exactly. Now, some of y'all, how would you feel if your wife died, sir, and then your brother was forced to marry her and to go into her? Hello. This is what the issue of Onan was. Hello. It wasn't about masturbation and how people teach it. Had nothing to do with that. It had the issue. He didn't take the responsibility of covering his brother's wife properly after his brother died. You see where we are? Oh man, I love it. 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 Oh my goodness. Right? So I can go and vote for something that is not contradictory to what I believe, because I don't believe I ought to force anybody. Now, again, if you don't believe it and you don't feel strongly, vote to take the right away from that choice away from an individual. That's on you. What I'm saying, there is no, I don't want you to get personal theology confused with public policy. Now, here's the deal. And then who determines theology? Who determines that? That's why it's personal theology. Right? Well, we Baptists, well, we Methodists, well, we, okay, that's a schism. That's further dividing the body. Listen, all I got is the Bible. That's all I got. I won't have anything else. You see what I'm saying? That's all I got. So who's theology? They talking about putting Bible courses in school. Who's going to teach it? Are they going to teach what you believe? Huh? Do you have the right to walk in that classroom and say, no, that's not what we believe. I'm Pentecostal. I'm apostolic. That's not what we believe. Whose theology? Folk, I need you to think, Culture Call. Think about it. They will use your faith and create a particular line of demarcation. It's all about who they can control, dominate, and keep out. Remember, this authentic, we've never in this country, let me say this again. We've never in this country, if I had a bullhorn, I'd say it again. We never in this country have seen authentic Christianity from the first century church. Never. We've never seen that. Because by the time we get it, Constantine got his hands on it. And it became a political situation. That's why you see, the Southern Baptists thought that their president of their ethics board had commended Joe Biden for stepping down and endorsing Kamala Harris. And the things that they said that they fired him the next day. Of course, that wasn't true, but the board of the chairman stepped down because it's not about religion. It's not about faith. It's about what tools we can use to control people. That's what it's about. And I need us as chocolate people of faith to wake up, to see that is what it's an issue of control. It's an issue of control. You need to understand that these are the same people talking here. These are the same people that would go to church, sing, "Shall We Gather at the River," say the benediction, and go out in the street and hang a black man and burn his body in front of his children and wife. That's the same kind of religion. That's what we've seen. Those vestiges are still alive today. So we as black and brown people have to think about how our faith is being used in politics and in society. Listen, this is your boy, L. Spencer Smith, right here on the Culture Call. Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK. Keep it right here. There's much, much more to come.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3, 790 WTSK. Listen. Yeah, it's because of you that we are numero uno. And we could not have done it without you. Thank you so much for listening today. Listen. So we've been talking about this whole idea, this convergence, this whole partnership between public policy and personal theology. And there are so many outliers, so many things that we're going to be talking about and layer it out for you, because I need you to call everybody and tell them, hey, you need to tune in to this boy because he up here talking some truth. I'm not going to bring to you a bunch of fluff. I'm going to tell you how it T-I-Z. I'm going to tell you like it is. One of the things I think that we need to do is to call a thing, especially when we see it. And part of our human existence is for us to learn how to learn, how to unlearn, how to relearn, right? And then how to fashion a different kind of way of living, right? And that is not anything bad. That's how you live your entire life, right? That's why we move. That's why we grow. Maturity. That's why we get better at what we do. That you and I don't need to be stuck around anybody in our circle that's afraid to learn a thing, but then you might have to unlearn. And then you might have to relearn. And then you begin to live a different way. Well, now, Bishop, I got a problem with that. Okay, cool. Then you got an issue with Romans 12 and verse number 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove that which is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. If you got a problem with learning, unlearning, and then relearning, then you have a problem with being transformed by the renewing of your mind. You see? So the whole process of our walk of faith, our development of theology, our knowledge of God, right? It is our knowledge of God on a very personal level is that there are things that we have learned that we have to perhaps unlearn, because you have to understand that people taught it in the light of their day. So the way that my granddaddy taught a thing, once I went and I read for myself and I learned, Holy Spirit began to talk to me and show me and connect it to me, then nothing wrong with my grandfather. It was good for the light of his day. But I'm not living in the light of his day. I'm living in my day, in the light of my day. So I've got to learn, but I've got to unlearn some of those things, especially coming from the Pentecostal background. Now, I am foundationally 100% through and through Pentecostal. That, I've started pastoring a Baptist church. My wife is a Baptist girl, beautiful Baptist girl, gorgeous, if I can say that. Trying to get some extra points. Nonetheless, yeah, absolutely. Right? And so we never came together because I'm Pentecostal, she's Baptist. We decided when we got together, even in college, that we will allow our personal relationships with God to formulate the kind of faith in which we will raise our family. Because I think even back then, we knew God had destiny for us. We just didn't know, how to handle it or how to steward it, or we mishandled it. But we knew that there were certain things that she learned from the Baptist tradition and I learned from the Pentecostal tradition that we had to unlearn and then relearn and then execute a life based upon the present truth, right? That we are to be, the Bible says that we are to be established, come on, in present truth. That's what Peter said. Apostle Peter. That's what he said. So we have to be established in present truth. And this is why I'm going this direction, because people want you to live life from the framework of the Old Testament. Number one, you weren't born then. We are born in the time in which we are most needed. Did you get that? That we are born in the time in which we are most needed, right? We are born in the time where there has been space created for us, for our uniqueness and our purpose. So every individual you see is a unique display of time and understanding. And when people teach religion, they think they're teaching theology, and they are not. Let me say it again. They think that when they're teaching religion, that they're teaching theology, and they are not. No. Religion, and even the Bible speaks toward good religion and bad religion, right? So there are customs and ways and traditions that you can follow that the scripture says are bad, right? Religion believes in trying to figure out what is right, rightness. Relationship decides what is righteousness. Let me say that again. Religion is about rightness, goodness and rightness. How you can determine the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's religion. Relationship is there is no right in me. There is no good in me of my own, even if I am moral. That all the righteousness that I have, the ability to choose life comes from God. There are some people in the world that don't know that yet, right? And so if they don't know that yet, then I cannot, and I've not introduced them to the righteousness. If I've hid the gospel, right? If I've hid the gospel, it is hid to them that are lost. Corinthians, so say Paul in Corinthians. And so if we hide it, but we're just adjudicating, we're just judging, we're just saying you going to hell, you going to this, then how will men know? That's why when we leave out of our sanctuaries and we dare to come into the public place, the public marketplace, the public place of public policy, we cannot just think about ourselves. No, I'm always thinking about what is going to create an opportunity for me to minister to an individual. I'm always going to talk about that. I've had to pastor young women who were faced with the difficult decision of having an abortion. I've had to pastor them and sit down with them. That's not a decision that they shout in glory over. Oh, I got an abortion. Oh, hallelujah. No, that's never been the case. It's been tears. It's been hurt. It's been pain. Right? And we navigate them through the scripture. But most importantly, I don't throw the Bible at them. The Bible says with loving kindness is how we draw. Yes? Yes. So I love them. I want to hear their journey. Why do they feel like? here are your options. Because they're in conflict because I believe in Jesus, but I'm in this situation. You see, that's why I say that you can't have a religion that don't know how to journey with people, that don't know how I've sat and talked to same gender loving people. I've ministered to them. I want to know your journey. How did you get there? What is your frame of reference? Our job is not to make sure that we vote for people not to be who they believe, who they believe. Because some people don't know who they are until we introduce who God say they are to them. That's the assignment. And sometimes we throw away our assignment because we just want to be right. We just want to be I got to be right. I got to be right. That's what we do. We throw people away, not even understanding that one encounter with you. Because come here, believer, person of faith, you ready? If somebody encounters you, they just encountered Jesus. It is the Christ in you, so saith Colossians. That is the hope of glory. There it is. Because what is sin? Falling short of the glory of God. And so Christ in you is the expectation or the hope of glory. I get an opportunity. You get an opportunity in our own personal way, not in some public policy, no. When you meet with someone and say, hey, why you make the decisions that you did? You on drugs. You're a filthy drug addict. You on this. But when you talk to them, my mom wasn't there. My dad left me. I was adopted, been in the system. This happened to me. I was raped, XYZ. And you listen to their journey and they haven't met Jesus. Then you say they're trying to find who they are via these addictions, via these behaviors, via these habits. And if you and I look at public policy and look at people and from a vantage point of heaven and hell, we have missed the gospel message. We have missed an opportunity to change the lives of people, which to me means, y'all ready? That we ourselves have not experienced the freedom of transformation in Christ. Because this is much more than a religion. This is much more than a religion. There are people's lives on the line. Now, I challenge some of my friends, and I see the runway because, I'm going to drop this off. I'm going to try to deal with this tomorrow or Thursday. I'm going to see how I can get. I challenge some of my friends. I said, now, our work is this. When the news came down from President Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, I said, here it is. We who are educated and spirit-filled, prayer warriors, we're going to have to confront systems that keep women in subjugation, that interpret scripture through a cultural lens that is not ours. We're going to have to deal with that, right? That it's going to be hard for a lot of brother pastors and sisters sitting in there who have been taught women are second-class citizens when it comes to leadership, when it comes to agency. Because if you want to allow a woman to preach, you're going to have a difficult time voting for her to be a president. Yes. Yeah. It's coming from within the house. And one of my classmates like, Smith, that's a hard road to hoe. I know that. And I believe, let me just switch my hats real quick to a prophetic hat. I believe that that's why God has presented us with this opportunity to confront our biases that we are naming in the name of religion. We got biases, by the way, that Jesus did not have. Biases that go against the text in the scripture. A lot of times when you read the New Testament husband and wife, we're not even going to talk about the Old Testament iteration because that was definitely culturally, societally, historically not written to us. We were not there in that time, in that culture, in that place. But when Paul tells us in Galatians that in Christ there is no Jew, no Greek, no bond, no free, no male, no female, but we are all one in him, we've got to examine that text against our own biases and how we view women, how we view each other. Right? Because in the beginning, it was not so. It was not so. and God created them, and God blessed them. Male and female created he them. That, right? Equal creation. We're still responding and moving out of the modality of the fall. Genesis chapter number 3. And we're conducting our lives and our meaning, right? But we get that from someplace, and we got to figure out where we get that from. Subjugating people and wanting to control agency. There is no law right now fussing about Viagra, Cialis, none. None talking about male genitalia, not a one. And where he can put it, and none of that. But there is one talking about the female anatomy and controlling that. And you got to start asking Culture Call, why? Why is that the conversation? You got to start asking those questions. And if you don't, we're going to be late last to lost. Listen, I got to take my last break. But listen, so much going on. Y'all keep it right here. We've got more to come. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
My. We have had an amazing day, and I sure hate to end this, but I got to do it. But guess what? We'll be back tomorrow talking about public theology, public policy and personal theology right here on the Culture Code with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Praise 93.3 and 790 WTSK. I want you to do your research. Do your homework. I will not allow your faith to be manipulated. We're going to be having some public forums to discuss some questions, some political questions as people of faith in the future. As we get closer, we get through the summer, we're going to be bringing people together and having intelligent conversations about how we actually live out this life. I think it begins with having people who really understand the text and really understand what a relationship with God really means, a personal relationship with God really means, right? I think that's very important. We cannot afford to mishandle this moment. I want to say that again. We cannot afford to mishandle this moment. We are being held accountable for our time, for our children, for our children's children. Yes, we're working on inheritance, legacy right now. Listen, and I'm all for it. Listen, as my grandma and my mama would say at the end of every phone call, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the neck. This is your boy, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on the Culture Call. Praise 93.3 and 790 WTSK, your number one station for gospel inspiration. I need you to stay tuned all throughout the day. There's much, much more to come. Don't you dare miss it. Be kind to each other. Love somebody. Make sure that you give them a big hug. Be at peace with all men. Holiness without shall no man see the Lord. I love you guys. Y'all have a great day. Catch you on tomorrow. Be blessed.